Okay. Ecclesiastes 4 and verse 8. There is one alone without companion. He has neither son nor brother, yet there is no end to all his labours, nor is his eye satisfied with riches. But he never asks, for whom do I toil and deprive myself of good? This also is vanity and a great evil. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Amen, and thanks be to God. Okay, so the flow of thought, just so you can kind of keep up here, is we began in chapter 3, verse 22, with a solution to being overwhelmed by injustice, overwhelming evil and sadness in life. And the idea was that we shouldn't strive to be like gods, peering into too much. We shouldn't reduce ourselves to like an animal life, but we should live like men. We should be content with what the Lord has given us. Focus on our little plot of land, our little workplace that he has dispensed to us in his wisdom. And then from there, we began to focus on problems we might face while living out the local life well. We talked last time about finding happiness in our work. And we said that at its heart, work is about relationships. And we got to verse 8, but that has transitioned us now into the subject of friendship and companionship. And this here is a central tenet to Ecclesiastes' philosophy of joy. Been building this philosophy of joy as we've been going through. You want to live a meaningful, full, good life before the Lord, then you need friendship. You need friendship for the journey. So that's the sermon title, Friendship for the Journey. First point I want to make here is that we can't live alone. We can't live alone. Now, obviously, I don't mean that those who are a bit lonely and stay away from others, their heart's going to suddenly stop. They're going to drop down dead. But what I do mean is that we can't live well alone. Everybody needs somebody. As I said the last time in verse 8, you have the story here of the saddest man alive, the person who has no companion, no brother, no son. He toils away. His eye is never satisfied. And he never stops to ask, for whom do I toil? For whom do I give up so much? And the author tells us this is vanity, and it is a great evil. It is a great evil. Here is the absence of goodness. What is it? The absence of companionship and of friendship. A man who has no meaningful relationships in his life. A man who has no love in his life. Here is a life that is less than life itself. Verse 9 affirms this idea. Two are better than one. Two are always better than one. We never ever want to be alone. And he illustrates why in verses 10 to 12. And we're going to look at this in terms of the loneliness element first. At the second part of verse 10, he says, Woe! Woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Woe to the one who falls. If you've ever been out running alone or out cycling alone and you have a nasty accident, it's a terrible shock and a fright to find it's happening to you and to have nobody there and to suddenly realize I'm hurt, I'm injured, and there's nobody to help. It's always difficult to face a crisis, but it is so much more difficult to face an unexpected crisis alone. And yet we just never know what is going to come into our lives. Will we fall? Will we fall? We better have somebody there to help us up. It's easy to think that everything is okay, that we are managing just fine in life until the point of misfortune comes. And the problem is, when the point of misfortune comes, when the fall happens, it's too late at that point to set up the support network we need in order to help us through. We've got to understand this. We cannot see what is ahead of us, and we are never as strong as we think we are. Never as strong as we think we are. Woe to the one who falls. Verse 11, he says, woe to the one who lies down at night alone. Woe to the one who lies down and who cannot get warm. Now, this is not an attack on those who sleep on a single bed. It's not an attack to those whose wives are away or something and they have the bed alone. That's actually quite a pleasant thing. If you're married, you sometimes welcome an empty bed. But the idea here is that you have a couple of companions and friends who are maybe traveling. They're working out in the fields, and at night the temperature can suddenly drop. And if you don't have double garments to share, if you don't have the sharing of body heat, you're not only going to find yourself in an uncomfortable place, but you're going to find yourself in a dangerous place. Now, that's probably not us, unless you're into wilderness walking and a sudden storm falls upon you. But there are cold seasons of life that are so much colder for those who are isolated. In verse 12, though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him. Woe to the lonely when adversity comes. We can all be blindsided by attacks. Attacks from other people. Something that happens at work. An unfair tutor. An actual burglary. An actual assault in the street. But the principle here is that we are just vulnerable when we are alone. We are liable to sink and never rise when we go it alone. And if that is true in the natural realm, how much more pressing is it when you consider that we live not just in the natural realm, but in the spiritual too? We live in a world of the devil and demons and fallen angels who are always at work seeking to divert us from the good, seeking every opportunity to turn us from God. If we are alone and the adversity comes, the adversary comes to us, then we find ourselves in serious trouble. For all of us, life is hard. For so many reasons. Unfairness, intensity, suffering, the grinding down over time, opposition, false starts, failures, uncertainty, stress, weariness, directionless, the dissonance of what we believe and what is and how we are, the demons, the temptations, the trials, the despairs. In light of the fact, do we really want to add an increased level of difficulty? Do we really want to add to that weakness and cold and vulnerability? Do we really want to live alone? And at this point you might say, what a daft thing to say. Surely nobody chooses to live alone. Except here's the thing. If it were so daft, why would the scripture say, watch out if you find yourself alone? Because we are inclined to isolationism. We are inclined to separate ourselves from other human relationships because they are challenging and because they are costly and because they ask us to give something up of ourselves. It seems easier to retreat and live in our own little worlds. But life is always harder. Life is always more difficult when we retreat. To live without another is to give up so much of what this life is for. As I said at the end of verse 8, he calls it vanity and a grave misfortune, or vanity and an evil misfortune that we have been brought into our life. Why? Because God has made us to live in community. God has made us for companionship and friendship. And without it, we are not living the life that God has designed and made for us. And some of you will have known loneliness. Some of you will have known, whether it was objectively true or not, periods of abject loneliness, isolation, when it was as though you had no one in the world. Nobody could reach you. And you just wanted to die. You just wanted to die. Loneliness can kill. Loneliness can literally kill. So we can't live alone. And yet, for many of us, we are inclined to it because it's easy, but it's actually the hardest option. So second then, what? Well, we need friends. There is the most shocking sermon development you have ever heard. We can't live alone, so we need friends. What? The insights I give you. We can't live alone, we need friends. But a friend can change everything. Verse 9, 2 are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. The word actually is toil. So sometimes work is described in the book, but sometimes it's described as toil. But toil can also just be the general difficulty of life. And so 2 are better than one because they have a good reward for all of their toil. How can we bear this life? With another. How can we bear this life? Through friendship. And the question is, what is the reward? And some people will say, well, because it imagines 2 men on a journey, 2 men's out laboring and working together, maybe on business, the reward here is that they're just going to get more out of their work. They're going to get more money at the end of it. They're going to be more productive. And of course, that is true. If you partner up with other people, you're going to get more stuff done. You're going to get better outcomes. But given what we said last time, in verse 6, that it's better to have 1 handful with quietness than 2 hands full, and that the end of work is not about how much you get out the other end, but the end of work is about how we love. It's very unlikely that the reward envisioned here is simply about what comes out the other end. And so what is the reward? Well, the next place to go is maybe to the practical benefits which he spells out for us. It is always better to go through life with others. Why? Because if we fall in verse 10, one will lift up his companion. For the crisis, there is somebody to turn to if you have another in your life. And they can come to you with encouragements and counsel and help. If you are called in verse 11, 2 can lie down together and they will keep warm. For the times that you are shut out and shut into yourself, there is somebody who will wait by your side, somebody who will make you laugh and talk you down and bring you back. And whereas the lonely in verse 12 are quickly overcome when attacked, overpowered by the adversary, to have another with you is to have somebody who will fight by your side, who will rise in your defense, who will see to your overcoming whatever it is that you need to overcome. You are always stronger together. You are always stronger together. This is just a universal principle. Christian or not, we are always stronger when we live together. He says, consider the cord. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. You take a little bit of thread, pull it, and it'll snap. You wrap around a bunch of threads, and it can get very strong very quickly. The first thing that came to my mind as I was reading this was this one episode of Mythbusters that stuck with me, for anybody who used to watch Mythbusters. And the myth they took on was the idea that you couldn't pull apart 2 books of interwoven pages. And it's an amazing thing to watch. You can put it in YouTube later on, maybe Mythbusters phone book experiment and watch it. But you take a single piece of paper and you think, a piece of paper, that's not very strong, is it? I can take my little sermon note here, Mary, and we can pull it one side. You can pull one side, I'll pull the other, and we'll rip this thing apart. You wouldn't expect it to do very much. But when you take a series of pages and they are interwoven, interplaced in between one another, without anything to hold them together, they become super strong. And so they take these two phone books, they put them together, and at first they try pulling them. Then they get a tug of a rope for a tug of war, and they have some little clamps on the end, and they get like 15, 20 people, and they try to pull apart the books, and the books just cannot be pulled apart. And so you know what they do next? They get two cars, and they tie ropes to the bumpers of the cars to the two phone books. They've got like a clamp to hold them in place, and the cars, like going full throttle, cannot pull the phone book apart. In the end, if you want the conclusion, they get two tanks, and finally the tanks are able to pull the phone books apart. But this is you, either with or without somebody. You can be either a thin little piece of paper that is easily torn, or you can put yourself in a position where you're able to withstand and endure inordinately more than you ever could alone, when your life is interwoven with the lives of others. We all need somebody. But is that the reward? Is that the reward? Is it about personal advantage? Is it about gain? Is it about protection? And it does kind of look that way, but I actually think the reward is more. The reward for toil, for trouble, is not simply the practical help that a companion affords. I think it's this, that hard times suffered together afford us a unique opportunity to be intertwined with another and to see their qualities and gifts and beauty in a way that we would never see it otherwise. So you think about men who go off to war, and those who survive it, they come back, and they've not just been helped through the war, but they have a bond that will never be separate. They are friends to the end of life. You think of those who've gone through like academic rigor together at university. They come through the other side. They are friends for life. Somebody who goes to a support group for addiction, they find somebody else there, some struggle. Not only do they help themselves through, but they discover the beauty of another human person, and they have a friend for life. This is the opportunity that is set before us, that if we would live and suffer and be together with others, not only do we have somebody who's going to help us up, not somebody who's going to help us to kind of thaw when we're feeling cold, not just somebody who is going to help us to withstand the adversity that comes into our lives, but in and through all of that, we are able to see the strengths and the qualities of another person and of our lives being bonded with theirs. And there's something magical about this, because what it means is that something sweet is given not just for the bitter, for the toil and hardship of life, but that something sweet emerges from the bitter. Here is the reward of toil. Not simply the means to endure because we have somebody, some people by our sides, but the means whereby through the toil we discover the sweet, strong bond of friendship that is forged through the flames, a treasure that could not be unearthed in any other way. And in this way we then have reason to rejoice and be grateful even in difficult times. Why? Because in the wilderness and in the turbulent seas, we not only go through in a way that is easier when we have those around us, but these become the unique opportunities whereby the precious gem of a true friend rises. And so even the bitter is turned to sweet when we bring others into our life, when they're already part of our lives, and then we go through the hard and the difficult things. So we can't live a life alone. We need friendship. And this is God's gift to man, one of God's gifts to man, that we have that capacity. We've been made with like brains and hearts and souls behind it all to share, to explore, to think together. And so we really can have friends, and we can discover friends through life's woes, as well as the high points as well. But then the final thought here, and it's an important one, is you can't go alone. Right? You need friends, but it needs to be friendship for the journey, which was the sermon title. It's got to be friendship for the journey. So the idea in the text, the picture, is that these are companions who are moving to a shared end. They're journeying, they're laboring, they're going together. And it reminds me of Lewis's observation that if you want to find a friend, you don't look for a friend, you do something you love with other people, and in the pursuit of the thing you love, you find friendship. Friendship is always for the journey. And so the question you've got to ask yourself with friends is, where are we headed? Where are we going? And of course, we're all going to have those kind of low-key, temporal, context-specific friendships, the people we become friends with at work, from school, maybe through some group that we're part of, choir or reading group, maybe at the football. Blood relations can fall into this category. And they can be dear and they can be valuable, and we can thank God for them. But at the same time, they're limited and they're dangerous. They're limited, not always dangerous, but they're limited and they can be dangerous. Never forget that this whole book is about distinguishing between the fool and the wise, between the wicked and the righteous. It's building a philosophy of joy for the people of God. As such, we cannot afford to underplay or neglect our ultimate destination, which is what? It is God himself. God is the destination. Now, here's the trouble with lower friendships. I'm not trying to be derogatory, they're just lower friendships because they're lower down the kind of ordering of goods. But a lower friendship, by its very nature of it being a friendship, is a thing that we're going to lean on when we are most vulnerable, when we are weak, when we are cold, when we are potentially distant from the Lord. And it might help us to keep going. It might help us to keep going in this life. It might help us to get out of a slump. But the question is, where is it ultimately helping us towards? Because I can guarantee this, that when you are at your weakest, the voice of the evil one will be most earnest. When you are laid open, when you are broken open, the voice of the evil one will be most earnest to get you there. And many an unsuspecting, well-intentioned friend or family member is liable to do great harm in the poor counsel that they offer when you are in that weakened place. Now, this is not to say then that we need to reject and get rid of those lower key friendships. No, thank God for them. They genuinely can be some help. We just need to recognize that they are limited, and we need to have the sense that the devil may just exploit them to exploit us when we find ourselves in a weak and vulnerable place. Positively, though, it's to say this, that above all, we need friends who are dead serious about reaching the eternal shores. Friendship is for the journey, and the destination matters. Now, I get at this point, we have mixed experiences, but I get for some of you at this point that you'll be like, but Christians are awkward. Christians are rude. Christians are difficult. Christians are disappointing. Actually, I get so much easier with Fred, at work, or I don't know. I'll just keep making up names, but yeah, I get all of that. But it still doesn't change the wisdom and truth of the matter. That you need people in your life who are going to help you, brighten you, love you, and challenge you till you reach your love, the eternal love of God. And so here's a couple of points of hope to that end. Points for hope to that end. The first is to say, all right, so you might have had some bad experiences, but really, and this is the flip side of what I said in the first point, good friends are obviously hard to find. They must be. And they must be hard to make. Because if they were easy, we wouldn't need to be so persuaded of the point. Ecclesiastes wouldn't need to labor the point. Woe to the one who is alone. But if you have a companion, well, you're going to be so much better off. Find a good companion, find a good friend. There is reward from the toil. These things are hard to find, hard to come by. They come with a cost. And so we don't need to be discouraged if we haven't always had the greatest success in finding a good friend. But we should understand, that, yeah, there is a reason we might not have found one, but also we need to understand that maybe that reason is the thing that has kept us from a good friend. I read just this insightful comment from Derek Kidner. He says this, concerning the cost of friendship: such demands are not explicit here, but there would hardly be the need to set out the benefits of partnership if it involved no cost. Its obvious price is the person's independence. Henceforth, that person must consult another's interests and another's convenience, listen to another's reasoning, adjust to another's pace and style, keep faith with another's trust. And you see what he's pointing out here. Human relationships, ones that are actually built upon love, are costly. They're painful. They involve sacrifice. They involve the giving up of part of ourselves in order to bring others in. And we may find it hard, and we may have suffered some car crashes along the way, but we cannot afford to give up on them because there is so much to be gained there. But I want to say this, that there are times when the maths won't add up. Like, it won't make practical sense. And I had this example, I was talking to her a little bit about the sermon, and she said, maybe it's a bit like hospitality, like the thing that we have just done today. Like the maths of it, the logic of it, it doesn't quite work out. Like, it costs quite a bit to prepare food for everybody. It costs time to prepare the food beforehand for everybody. It costs social energies to be with the people all day. It creates mess to tidy up at the end of it all day. Plus, there are other people in our lives that maybe need our time, the children, and then you bring others in and it takes something from you. Now, you look at that and you say that the figures, they just don't add up. And yet every single time we are grateful that we have served. We are grateful that we have brought people into our home and into our lives. Why? Well, similar to last week, actually, because we don't live in a world without a God. If we lived in a world without a God, then everything would be mechanical. Everything would be just a case of accounting and adding up the numbers and seeing what is going to lead practically, logically, to the best possible outcome. But that's not the world we live in. We live in a world which is more akin to magic and mystery. A world where the Father sees what is going on in the heart and rewards us openly. A world where the cost of friendship, it just doesn't seem to be worth it. But as we pour ourselves out, as we lose ourselves in the pursuit of giving ourselves to another, there we actually find ourselves, and we find something that is richer, that is life-enriching, that will help us in our spiritual lives. They're hard to come by, but they are worth it. Here's the other hopeful thought. If we are always strung together, and it is universally true, a three-chord chord cannot quickly be broken, and that's true naturally, and we have known it, how much more so is that true spiritually? Spiritual friendships can be hard, but to enter into friendship with a lover of Christ is to enter into friendship with Christ himself. Receive one of these little ones in my name is to receive me, is to receive the Father who sent me. It is a friendship with God in the midst, with the Spirit as the bond of peace. The love with which we love one another being the free-flowing interchange of the love of heaven. Like, whatever our experience is when it comes to making these kinds of friends, that surely sounds good to us in principle. And so where do we begin? Where do we begin to make these friends? Question I ask myself every day. Never had many of them. Would quite like to have more of them in my life. Where do I go to make friends? Well, I suppose going back to C.S. Lewis's point, you don't try to make a friend. You find something you love and you do it with others, and their friendship emerges. Well, there is a place where we can come to where we are headed in the same direction, at least on the surface. headed to the one great love, and that's church, of course. Church is the context. It has to be the context. Here are the people who are all seeking to reach the great eternal shores, seeking to reach God Almighty. So then in the context of the church, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to seek and try for friendship there. You're going to invest in people. You're going to try to nurture what has begun. Remembering first, like providence. Like it might seem like maybe there's nobody here for me, I don't really gel with, I don't click with, but providence, God has brought us together. He has uniquely brought you to this place and the others here, and God is always intending some good. Remembering that they're not all going to be real winners. They won't all start out particularly in a particularly impressive way. But remember what we said earlier, friendship grows as we go through the pains of life together. Friendship and the value of it emerges as we go through the difficult things. You don't always see it at the very beginning. So we got to take a punt. We got to be open to try. And then we got to be open to try again. And then we got to be open to try again, because we cannot afford to do it alone. I also think we've got to be somewhat serious in our relationships with others. And I don't mean by this that we need to be like super solemn in our Christian relationships, or like super intense. Like, tell me this week, how have you sinned, brother? Like, that's not what I mean. But what I do mean is that we're not just in it to goof around with chums. Like, we are both in it because we both wish to reach our God. And that is our priority. It's the priority for our journeying. It's the priority in our concern for one another. It is the priority in our conversation, the time we spend together. And then the other thought is this: given the nature of love, that all we have is given and all we have is to be given and to serve, then it wouldn't surprise me to discover that the best starting point for finding really good, meaningful, lasting friendship is not with the question, who could be good for me? Who do I like the look of here? Who is the most charismatic? Who is the funniest? Who is the cleverest? But actually the best starting point, I think, would be with the heart of Christ. Who needs a friend? Who do I see who seems just a little isolated, cut off on the outside? And maybe I could start there. And who knows what would come of it? Whatever it takes, however many false starts, please hear this: loneliness kills. It leaves us open to fall and not rise, to freeze and not warm, to attack followed by defeat. We do not want to introduce more difficulty into our lives. We face a great foe. We have a great hope before us, and we need friendship for the journey. Friendship for the journey. Amen.